Hi, I'm Jen Josey, and I'm going to be talking to you about Podcasting 101, something you didn't realize you need in your life. But before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my dear friend, Dr. Linda Jordon, for inviting me to speak with all you fabulous people today. So check her out. If she's not your coach yet, she needs to be. She's been my coach. She's wonderful. All right, a little background on me. I am from South Florida, and I was a middle school music teacher for 16 years, and I woke up one day and realized I hated children, kinda. And then I went into an equally abusive industry and chose health insurance. Ooh. So I quickly climbed the corporate ladder only to realize I was halfway up the wrong ladder. I was seeing my friends get let go left and right, and I thought, I want to be in charge of my own financial freedom. So I got into real estate investing in 2017 and never looked back. From there, we created a couple different companies, and I started a mastermind that was inspired from being in one of Dr. Linda Jordon's courses, one of her John Maxwell courses. So I took the same format, created my own mastermind called RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. From there, I also was trying to get into the speaking industry, which we'll get to in a second, and I became the bestower of badassery. But the important thing is looking at that little TM, which we're going to get to in a second. I'm married to a perfect husband for me, Vance, and we have 4 furry children, 2 cats and 2 dogs, and we live in Raleigh, North Carolina. So, how to start your own podcast. Some of you listeners may be saying, not even on the horizon. For me, was not on my horizon either. I never thought I'd be a podcaster. It was just one of those things that kind of fell into my lap, and I'm so grateful I did it. But if you really, truly never want to start your own podcast, the second part, I get into how to be a great podcast guest, which all of you should be interested in. So enter podcasting. I'm a big believer in vision boards. And in the end of 2019, I had this beautiful vision board, and on there was a speaker microphone. I was wanting to get more on stage and do more presentations on real estate investing, and took some trainings, was so ready to do it, bought some cool outfits, and then we all know what happened in 2020. So now I'm like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I kept taking some more courses, etc. But what I didn't realize was that that speaking microphone turned into a podcast microphone. So towards the middle of 2020, I was pushed out of my comfort zone, and I joined this group called PodMax. And it was an opportunity for me to speak on 6 national podcasts. I didn't know what I was doing, but they trained you how to be a great guest. It was such a cool experience. Shout out to the people at PodMax. So from there, hanging out with those podcasters, I'm like, I could do this myself. And what a great opportunity to put all that training I had been doing to work. So I found some cheap podcast trainings on Entrepreneur Store. I think I paid like $35, and I got a bundle of these educational little programs and taught myself how to become a podcaster. Then I created my own podcast, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network, which is the acronym RAIN, in August of 2020. And I'm happy to say August 5th, just recently, I celebrated starting my 3rd season. And many podcasters don't make it past 20 episodes. So, huge benchmark for me. Thank you. Thank you for applauding. That was very nice of you. So, going back to the bestower of badassery, I wanted to be one of those type of people who really made others feel great about themselves. And I was like, what better way to do it but to bestow some badassery on others? But what's important is you want to make sure it's trademarked. You don't want to just pick some random name and, have that be your avatar, shall we say. You want to make sure that you are protected. So get it trademarked. It's about $1,300. I have it for 10 years. No one can steal it from me. And it's a great thing to have. Lastly, before you get into this, you want to get what's called errors and omissions insurance. I pay about $1,500 a year for that. And if somebody is listening to my podcast, I give them advice, they follow it, but it doesn't turn out exactly as expected, they may want to come back and sue me. So this is just a protection, and it's great for anyone, especially if you're speaking, to have that. So this is literally right behind me. I am living in a condo temporarily till our forever home is being built, and in there I will have a studio. But this is really all you need to start a podcast. You need your laptop, you need a good microphone. Right there I have a mixing board. You don't have to have one of those, but it makes it better. And then I have a really good set of headphones. So the technical side. These things, again, I learned from all those little courses that I took. Calendly. I pay for the pro version of Calendly because it gives reminders to your guests. I will book out, say, a month in advance, and they may book a month later and forget about it. So it's one of those things we'll send them reminders. It also has all the questions you will be asking or going over during the recording so that you are, and they get that information to you so you're prepared to be a great host for them. It's super easy. It's all done automated, so it takes the thinking out and the time away from you. Recording. So I use the Rodecaster Pro. That's that box behind me. I don't know what I'm saying there. And that's where I record everything. It has the levels for the different voices. It has my sounds programmed in there. So that is $600. I did not use that until probably 6 months into recording. In the beginning, I only recorded on Zoom. Zoom will then break it out for you into different tracks so you can edit, but having that Rodecaster Pro is so much easier. I still use Zoom because that's how I do the interviews, and I use it as a backup recording in case something happens to the Rodecaster Pro. Microphone. Right here I have the Blue Yeti. This was what I started using in the beginning. It's a USB microphone. It's also great if you're going to be a guest to give you that higher quality audio. But what I'm using now is the Audio Technica, and it's because it plugs into the back of the board for the Rodecaster. So it's like a legit microphone, and it just will increase your quality for the listeners. Editing is done on a program called Audacity, and it's a free program. It's been around for years, and you just upload the different tracks, and then you can edit in there. I have a couple different screenshots of how it works. It's super easy once you get used to it, but there are definitely aspects of it that I don't even know what works on it. I know what works for me when I'm editing podcasts. Again, those little courses taught me how to do all that. Now, once you have completed your podcast, edited it, you upload it to a hosting program, and I use what's called Libsyn 5. I started with, I think, Libsyn 3, and then it's evolved into Libsyn 5, and that's what houses all of your recordings for life. So that's one thing with podcasting. Unless you go out and delete it, it's going to be out there forever. So that's the site that will host it for you. I pay $15 a month for that, for up to 324 megabytes of sound, of audio space, shall we say, storage space. And it is probably about 6 to 7 hours of podcasts per month, and then it resets the next month. You do have to do a one-time connection of your RSS feed to all podcatchers. So Libsyn spits it out into this little web link called an RSS feed, and you have to upload that one by one to all the different podcatchers, like your Stitcher, your Spotify, your Apple iTunes, whatever it is. Not an Apple person, sorry. And that is kind of tedious, but sometimes when there's new ones that come out. So Audible just started having podcasts on there, and so Libsyn 5 sent out a little notice saying, hey, make sure you upload your RSS feed to Audible. So then you have to do it physically, but one time and you're done. Podcast artwork. I pay for the Canva Pro. It's $13 a month, but it's on my podcast artwork. They're very picky, the podcatchers, because they have to be 4,000 by 4,000 pixels. But I like to put my guest photo on the artwork for each show. It makes them like really have a lot of ownership for it. They want to share it more, so, and then build your business as well. So I pay extra for that Canva Pro so I can kind of take the background and make a cool design every time. And lastly is your intro, outro music. You can hire someone on Fiverr, a voiceover, and they have a whole bunch on there. I think I paid $35 and I had my intro music recorded. So listen up.
Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josey. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josey. Listener discretion is advised.
So, the listener discretion part, podcasting, it's like the wild, wild west. You can do whatever you want. So sometimes curse words slip. Plus, I use the word badass over and over and over again. So I just have that in there as a little disclosure for my listeners. All right, here is a quick sample of what Audacity looks like. And we have my voice on the top track, my guest voice on the second track, and then the sounds on the third track. And when I first upload them, so this is all 40 minutes of this episode. So it's squished together. But all the sound is really small. So that's kind of the volume, the height of the little squiggly lines on there. So what I want to do is amplify it. I don't know if you notice this sometimes when you listen to podcasts in your car, you have your radio, but then you put on, say, Spotify, and you have to turn the volume way up. It's because of this. A lot of people will not just amplify it in the recording from the beginning. So this is amplifying it, raising it a bit, and you see my voice is going to be a lot louder than my guest voice. So then there's this tool up here, which will then shrink them down in general so that they are all about the same level. So this is what it looks like. You can see I evened it out where I'm talking and then she's talking, and it's going to be the same volume. Here's a sample. It's not a great recording of it, so my apologies, but I'm recording here, and in this section, I can't say the word tool. So I go back and I cut it out, but again, like I said, you can't really hear the beginning part, but here we go. Listen up. Here is a quick example of deleting a section where I cannot say the word tool. So I'll let you listen first. So as I'm going through and editing, I can see kind of where the spaces are. This is the breath right here. So I'm going to leave this breath because this one I kind of laughed a little bit in it. And use this tool. I'm going to delete all 3 lines so that I can have it deleted in every section instead of just having it cut off, because then the other lines will not align. So my little chopping tool.
Construction cost estimators are a vital tool when determining a maximum allowable offer on a.
So there you go, voila. So if you noticed, when I was recording it, I didn't stop the recording. I just took a breath so I could see what that line was, and then I need to go back and edit it. Now, successful podcasting is all about consistency. The most important is to release the same time each week. I release every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. My listeners, I have a following. They know a new episode is coming out. There are some people who have great podcasts, but they're just scattered all over the place, and their listeners start losing interest when it's not being done consistently. If you are thinking about doing a podcast, this right here is the most important thing you will learn. You want to vary your formats. Okay, I have 3 different formats that I use. The first one is the Badass Podcast. That's where I'm interviewing someone who's maybe selling a program, who has something to promote in their business. It's kind of a one and done episode. A lot of podcasts are just the one and dones. They have one interview and then it's done. You don't have anything else to talk about unless they're selling something later on. The second format that I use, I'm a real estate investor, so I have other real estate investors come on and talk about their past projects. And it's a great way for my listeners, which are typically the newer people just getting into investing, flipping, etc., and they get to hear about the mistakes of experts in their field. So I can have the same person on multiple times talking about different properties. And it was one of the best things I did, especially in the beginning when it was tough to try to find people to interview on my show. The third format that I use is I'm also a blogger. I love to write, and I will read some of my blogs. So the reason for the varying of the format is also time-wise. My badass interviews and my past project interviews are anywhere from like 30 to 40 minutes. That's a great time because that's about the average someone's on a treadmill at the gym, if you think about it. Then when I read my blogs, they're only about 10 minutes long. So every once in a while, there will be an episode where I'm just reading a blog. I'm just laying out serious content. And it may be that the person listening only has time from their house and driving to the store. So they only want a 10-minute episode. So varying your formats is so important. I'm so glad I did it from day one. You want to have searchable show notes. I just recorded this guy who did what's called a condo conversion. He found this old historic mansion and he converted it into an 8-unit Airbnb. So that's called a condo conversion. It was such a cool episode. And so I put that in the show notes, condo conversion. So when people are, looking for that specific topic, that's going to add more listeners to your podcast. You want to use the same verbiage from your social media or your business. So it says, here's the real Jen Josey, if you heard that on the intro. That's my website, is therealjenjosey.com. I also on Instagram, and I am the real Jen Josey. I'm hilarious to follow, by the way. Go follow me on Instagram. But also, I post a meme every day. So at the very end of my episodes, I say, now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. And that's what I say on all of my memes, is make it a great day. So I tie everything in together. You want to create a repeatable gimmick. I use an acronym, and I use the acronym BADASS. So we talk in the first part of the episode. The last part of the episode, everybody answers the same question. I use the acronym BADASS. B, the first letter, is for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life? A is advice. What's the best piece of advice you received? D is drive, etc., etc. So each person, whether it be an author who's selling a book to someone who has flipped their first property, they all get to answer the same questions. You also want to provide an ask. This is where you can start monetizing a podcast. I usually just put it in the show notes. Like I said, I have a mastermind. It's called RAIN, and it's in my show notes. If you want to learn more about it, go to this website, etc. Affiliate links. This is awesome. I'm attending an event in another 2 months, and every time somebody clicks my link for that event, I get $500 off my trip. So I have been putting that in my show notes. It's just another way for me to get money directly or money off of something. And I also use what's called headliners. This used to be attached to Libsyn, but it's separate now, but I still go back and use it. And all it is when you are sharing on social media, it's one of those things to help grab the attention of people just scrolling through their phone. So this is an example right here. See how I use Canva, I do the cutout of his face. I remove the background, but it's the same logo and information on the left. This is a badass interview. This is actually my coach, and listen in.
Once you do a couple of deals, now it's like, now you just need to stretch your thinking. That's the only limitation. Like, these nitwits that I know in commercial real estate, they are no better than any of us from the residential world. Somebody told them that they could think bigger, and they started thinking bigger.
So, why podcasting? This is what podcasting has done for me. It has built my credibility. People hear that I have a podcast on real estate investing, they're going to want to invest their money with me. They hear me I record someone, that person shares it, then that is only building my credibility. Who's this, the real Jen Josey? They keep coming back to me. It's expanded my brand. I say make it a great day, and that's all on my post, etc. But it's on shirts that I wear, my Rain podcast shirts, etc. So it's just a great way to build. It's expanded my brand. It has grown my network. It's a great way for me to walk up to someone and say, who maybe just spoke on a stage and had some great information. I say, hey, I have a podcast. I'd love to interview you on my podcast. It just is one of those things where they're going to be focused on me, make sure they get my information before they leave. It has increased my knowledge of the industry by connecting me with experts. This is probably the coolest part. It blows my mind, some of the people who have started reaching out and say, hey, I think so-and-so would be a great guest on your podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know who that is. And I get a little celebrity crush. And it's one of those things where now I'm getting one-on-one conversation with this expert in the industry. It is so cool. That alone is just really blown my mind, made me better at what I do. It's also created a new income stream with more to come. So when it grows and grows and grows, you have to get to about 10,000 downloads per episode. I'm nowhere near that. But when you start getting there, people will want to start doing advertisements during your podcast. And that is only going to start growing it even more. But in the meantime, I do those asks for, growing my business or the affiliate links. So if you are not interested in starting your own podcast, which I hope you do, because it's something I didn't realize I needed, I'm telling you, it's something that's going to be great for your business. Become a podcast guest. This is a great way to promote you. So how to be a great podcast guest. You want to have some rehearsed stories that evoke emotion. I talk about real estate, and real estate, for me, it's how I suckered my husband into marrying me. True story. So we dated years ago. We broke up. We got back together. And I was like, all right, we're getting back together. This is going to be for life here. So we were watching TV. We love watching HGTV. And I said, hey, we should go look at some houses, just for our likes and dislikes. And I called my realtor friend. We went to go look at some properties. And there was this one house. It was awesome. It was beautiful. It had a lot of wallpaper, but I could get past that. And it was in a great neighborhood. So we're drinking at the bar later with our realtor. And I say to Vance, I'm like, that house was amazing. And he's like, that really was a great price for it too. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting a mortgage unless I'm married. He's like, I'm not getting a mortgage unless I'm married. And my realtor is like, what is happening? And so I said, well, let's go Friday. So we literally went to the courthouse. We got married on Friday. We put an offer on that house on Saturday, and the deal fell through. So literally the words out of my mouth, I said, we got married for nothing. True story. So I hope you got a laugh out of that. That is evoking emotion. You want to have these canned stories that are ready to go. I have a friend who her son had brain cancer and all this horrible things, but then how her life turned out fabulous is just to really draw in your listeners. You want to provide value. I cannot stress this enough. Podcasters are out there to share their wisdom, to educate people, to provide value. So you must provide value. You want to know who their listeners are and adjust accordingly. I've had some guests that are really high level and talk way above my listeners. My listeners are newer to real estate investing. Sometimes they don't understand, what some words are, so I have to slow it down and kind of define them. So know who the listeners are. By the way, you should provide value. I just recently interviewed someone who was like talking to a loaf of bread. So provide value. You want to be prepared. Listen to some of their previous episodes. When I was on those 6 national podcasts, one was called The Brave Files. It's a fabulous podcast, by the way. And at the end, she likes to promote the guest's charity of choice. And so she said, oh, I forgot to tell you, and I said, nope, I already have my charity ready to go. So she was impressed that I already knew to have that prepared. But by the way, provide value, please, if you're going to be a guest on a podcast. You also want to have clear audio and be in a distraction-free environment. Do not say you are going to be on someone's podcast and have your earbuds in sitting in your car because you got, car noise, street noise around you. I've had one guest who had an infant in their lap the whole time with like little babbling sounds. And I'm like, no. So please, and that is, by the way, editing all that baby sound out was tough. So be in a distraction-free environment. So wrapping up, getting close to the end here, a great way to be a great guest is to be prepared and hand them all the information. This is an example of a one sheet. A lot of times people, when they're trying to promote businesses, they hire what's called a broker who will then promote them and reach out. So I have these people reaching out to me all the time. Hey, I got 3 guests. I think they would be great on your show. Here are their one sheets. So this guy right here, his name is Zach Booth, and I started reading through it. What I love about this one sheet is they give you a suggested intro. That's part of the time-consuming part of doing a podcast, is writing out an intro for each person. So they give you a suggested intro, which is amazing. And just that saves so much time for preparation. Then they even have interview topics. So this episode with Zach Booth, I did this first one. It was a 40-day challenge where he turned $1,000 into $40,000. And spoiler alert, it was much more than $40,000. So it was a really cool story, cool episode, lots of nuggets. It was a great way for them to learn. So if you want to be a guest on a podcast, do the setup work for them, and they're going to love having you on there. So are you ready to share your badassery? If you are in the real estate investment business, which I know is probably only a few of you on here, I would love to have you on my show, especially if you have a past project to share. It's a great first time episode. Go ahead and scan that QR code and it will take you to my website where you can sign up to be on my podcast. And lastly, I want to thank you. This is my website, therealjenjosey.com. Please go out and like my podcast. That's my ask of you. And thank you again, Dr. Linda Jordon. She is the best, everyone. And go out there and be amazing. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.